Afternoon or good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are. This is Reverend Kenneth Price on Sunday, September 22nd, and I'm here with Reverend Dale Blackford, and this is Dale's weekly podcast, Freedom from Suffering, and this is our ministry, two or more are one.com. Um, I will have a title for this podcast after Dale is done with his 1 hour, but I don't ever have a title planned because the titles find us, although they find him. This is his hour, and I just enjoy doing this because I like to listen to what he has to say. Dale goes very deep, and Dale goes in many different directions. But like I've said, every single Zoom call, all the directions eventually, it's kind of like they're all different trails, and they're kind of weaving their way through a forest. But if you just wait patiently enough, all these trails come together to one common message. So, Dale, can you start weaving trails for us today and get to the message?
Oh
Well,
yeah.
there's only ever one message, but you say the same thing every week in a thousand different ways, so we can remember it, solidify it, anchor it again and again and again, because I don't know about anybody else out there. I've got like a built-in forgetter and I need a daily reminder. So I'm waiting for my daily reminder. There you go. How's that for an
Yeah.
introduction?
Cool. Well, it reminds me of when I'm not doing ministry anymore, speaking regularly, but I love to speak. Whenever I'd speak, that's how I do, because I never had a talk title, and then I'd meet with somebody afterwards, like my music director or somebody, and say, what do you think we ought to call that? I go, well, I thought it was this. I go, that works for me. I don't know. So anyway, here we are, live streaming, but that's the way it should be, because if you want to explore truth, you got to enter into the mystery. You can't, stay within the bounds of where you want to go, because that place is pretty limited. Is really very limited, and it's the same old, same old. Uh, which kind of there's a phrase that hit me early last week, about almost a week ago, and I thought I would start with that because it's been really resonating through my head a lot, in my heart, and that is. The phrase is accept the lay of the land. Accept the lay of the land. Which is very different for New Thought people and stuff like that, because everyone's always thinking that you should be using your mind to change things, to make them better, to make them more expansive, et cetera, like that. Even in the 12-step community, the phrase, which I do love the serenity prayer, but it's God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it's a great saying, but at some point you got to ask yourself the question, am I really about changing things? Why would I change things? What's that about? Because that assumes that something, I guess, needs to be changed or would be better by changing it, or that's a purpose, that we change things. Um, And what I'm finding more and more is that that's not true. That we're not here to change things. We're here to see things, see everything, start observing, because everything has a depth to it that we're not seeing. It's like when we look at it a certain way, and you want to make the assessment to change it, you have to kind of look through a thimble full of vision to say, well, this is what's going on, and therefore it needs to be changed. And in this world, um, even on the perception stage, which is just a cover, it's like a veneer over reality, just a little tiny veneer that we encapsulate and say that's the reality of it. It's like the tip of the iceberg, and we say, well, this is the iceberg, and the ocean is this tip of the iceberg that we're working with. It's all connected. The tip of the iceberg is connected to the whole of the iceberg. It's connected to the sea. It's connected to the air. It's connected to worlds beyond. It's connected to everything. And then the question comes, well, what do if you want peace, you have to explore that. And if you want miracles, like really, how can you have a miracle if you have an expectation of what that miracle is? That's not a miracle. I mean, the miracle is something that transcends your understanding and your belief about what's possible. What's possible. Just 1 second, Marina. I can't do that if you're going to talk here. Okay. I'm not going to be able to do that. All right. You understand? Yeah. Okay. I'm back. So so accepting the lay of the land, that's where it all begins, is learning to accept that. That goes back to the fundamental thing I say with Einstein, where Einstein says the most important decision you make is whether or not you live in a friendly or hostile universe. If you explore, when I explore that friendly or hostile universe, if I want to live in a friendly universe, I mean, I've got to really imagine how friendly it is. You know, some people would say, well, friendly is God gives you the strength to do the understanding to decipher and disseminate what, or decipher what, discriminate what the serenity prayer is, what you can change, what you ought to change, what you can't change. You can change anything in this world, but it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything if you change it. And usually if you're focused on that, that's all you're going to, that's what that's what your experience becomes, is same old, same old. Uh, to accept the lay of the land is to understand, like Einstein's quote, that for me, it's like I live in a friendly universe. So if I'm seeing anything, for instance, especially in need of change or anything like that, I find that if someone looks at me, at what I do, and asks me about it and says, well, you're changing things, I would probably say, well, I don't think I'm changing things. I'm just following, I'm on the path that spirit is leading me in, and it's guiding me to do this, this, and this. I don't have an intention to change. I just have a willingness to explore, to notice, to expand my vision into that friendly area that Einstein talks about. Otherwise, it's a hostile world. Everything's hostile. If you have to, we know what a hostile world is like. A friendly world, we really haven't really explored that. Like, what is the world when it's friendly, including all the things that happen in it. If you're going to accept the lay of the land, for instance, that's accepting everything. That's everything from, your birthday to serial killings. It's all of it, from abuse to gentle compassion. It's accepting all of that, and accepting it that you don't know what's going on. You definitely don't know what you're seeing. You're seeing a limitation of it, and it'll change. One of the things that starts to change, I saw this first of all, like when I accept the lay of the land, is starting to look at my mind when I accept the lay of the land and ask myself what it is I'm really about here. Because if you're praying, or you're visualizing, or you're setting goals, or you're doing anything or even say you're for many people,
Can I
they're going to become still.
can I
Why?
can I jump in real quick, because
Yeah.
this ties in directly to um, a, a, a hunch that I had this week, that it's the older I get, I'm younger than you are, but I'm a senior now. I'm 57, and it just dawned on me, Dale, I don't think I have any control at all. I, I'm sorry, and I don't want to mention this to a lot of people because I'm getting a lot of flack for it. So I kind of keep it under wraps. But I've honestly come to the conclusion that I do not have any control over what happens. Now, I then started to feel a subtle shift, because then I started to feel inside that now I can start to focus on my perception of what's happening. And it's kind of it feels like my life has pretty much everything that I've discovered that this world can't provide. I mean, everything that I've tried in this world has been come out to be temporal, and it's provided nothing lasting. So, and then you said something else, and I can't remember, but I'll share with you what went through my mind. Is it's been really difficult for me to attend a lot of the Unity Church services. No fault, no blame, but it feels sort of like, because I had to leave one this morning because I was tired, and it was a repetition that they're wanting us to affirm the light. They're wanting us to, and again, I'm not judging it, but I'm just sharing with you that I'm not in a place where affirming light, and anchoring light is feeling very helpful right now. I'm right now in my script, like I said before the Zoom call started, I'm going through a lot. And I'm not sharing it, but I'm just noticing that my insides are not settled. And affirming the light may at one time may have gotten me to the other side of this, or appear to have gotten me to another side. But right now, affirming light doesn't feel as helpful as just simply allowing it and trusting it. That's, I think, where you're going. You said Einstein said it's a friendly universe, and in my vernacular, I have my practice is just to allow it with the firm conviction that it's happening for my healing, not because I'm doing something metaphysically incorrect. And I know
Right.
we're both on the same page with
But
this.
and affirming the light, I mean, if you really look at it, if you're going to affirm the light, the fundamental belief is that you're actually disconnected from it.
I'm glad you brought that up because it hasn't been it hasn't been something I felt like participating in, and it's very difficult for me to share this with other people because I sat in a room full of 50 people, and it was very helpful for 50 people, and something I kind of felt like I needed to go out into the Garden of Gethsemane and just get still with it all for where I am right now.
Right. Well, the reality is most people in even spiritual practice, meditation, whatever, they're living in a hostile universe. They're living in a hostile universe, and they're believing in a hostile universe. If you're, because the only question you could ask of anything that's happening, if you live in a friendly universe, as you start exploring this, one starts exploring, is what am I missing that makes me feel or perceive that something is disconnected or hostile? What am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? Because if I would see it, I would see the friendliness of it, and
Yeah.
I'd be blissful about it. But we don't see that, so we're wrestling with it. And the lay, for instance, the lay of the land, like accept the lay of the land, is to truly accept it. It's like to realize, I mean, it's not to accept the lay of the land and then, oh, I'll be at peace and God will change it to make it be something that more that I want or that I think is better. No, that's still disconnect. It's like accepting the lay of the land is allowing yourself to immerse and transcend and deepen within what's appearing, to actually go into that and let it expand and see the friendliness that you're missing. See what's going on there. Because
Yeah, and well, this is a common thread that's run through all of your Zoom calls, and I think it's, what am I? I'm always ready to ask myself a question before I'll affirm the light. Right now, I'm having more of a intuitive hit to ask myself a question, and the question that you keep posing to me and to the rest of the YouTube audience is, what am I missing here?
right.
It's sort of like my friend Jack Johnson, who came on one of our calls. He's always asking the question, who's the one who's feeling the feeling? And when I bring you on, it's like, what am I missing? If I'm not feeling completely settled, I must be missing something based on the premise that it is a friendly universe. So, and I don't have an answer yet, but I'm more than willing to ask the question. I think the word right there is willing. What is it? There's something here. And like my experience in Pittsburgh, there was something there, and I was going through a lot of turmoil inside. And 6 months later, it was, oh yeah, I that was inside of me the whole time, and it took 6 months in Pittsburgh for it to come out, up and out,
Right.
kind of like a. It wasn't very pleasant coming up because no one likes to vomit.
There's countless examples. I mean, look at Viktor Frankl. I mean, he's in a Nazi concentration camp, and he's seeing the light of the universe in it. That he's not changing it. It wasn't that the light freed him from that. I mean, that changed for him, yes, but he found that peace and that reality actually in it. And that's whatever who's listening right now, if you want to know where your salvation is, it's right in front of you and inside you right now. There's no place you have to develop or no place you have to go. It's right here. It's just simply a question of accepting it and allowing yourself to see it, to be it. And that takes, some work. That's why we do the two or more is one theme on it, because it is easier, and it's not easier. It's clearer with when two or more are gathered, because
Mhm.
the expansion of consciousness is so exponential. It's like there's an awakening within us that when we see as two or more, we're starting to see things that we have a hard time seeing as I mean, when you're on your own, the main learning tool you have is suffering. That's the main, it's not enlightenment, it's suffering. Because you have to suffer to see why, it's like an alcoholic going like, they have to drink. They have to keep drinking till they figure out that drinking is not that drinking is bad for them, but that drinking is not something they want to do anymore, because it's not getting them, it's not opening their world. In fact, if anything, it's closing it down even more. And they need to do that until they can see that. And when when individual, that's primarily what we do. And
Yeah, and
we
you've
do
been
a lot.
saying this. This has been the common thread. Again, you've had so many common threads in all the years I've known you, and that's been another one that's unique. That's why I keep coming back, because what you're saying, most people say you shouldn't suffer. Well, when I hear you lecture, Dale, you say just be with the suffering, because it's like the pony shit example you use, digging through the pony shit, because there's got to be a pony down here somewhere.
Well, and Jesus told you, Jesus in the scriptures, there's no instance at all except that where Jesus says worship him. Except he says something about worship me when he's quoting Isaiah to it's listed twice in the same quote in Matthew and Mark, exact same quote. And he's quoting Isaiah, and he's doing it in a negative way. He's basically saying, and even the quote itself is like, these people, like as Isaiah, I'm paraphrasing, but Isaiah's kind of saying, yeah, these people worship me, but they're missing the mark. And there's never anything about Jesus that says worship him. But there's a lot of stuff in there about, in fact, I counted it one time, and if you count the Gospel of Thomas also with the other four Gospels, I found 17 times where Jesus said, follow me, follow me. Okay. Do people understand where he went? Where was his last destination on this earthly existence? Do you remember it?
That's a pretty. I want to flush. I want to keep going, because that's not been brought up. That's not been
Well,
brought up before. So
that's
what's the
why
cross?
Christianity don't want to look at that, or anybody who's like looks at Jesus, they want to say,
Interesting.
well, he just did that
Interesting.
because he wanted to save us, or he paid our sins, or that's such bullshit.
It doesn't go far enough.
Went there because that is where we go, because we go through to the death of the self. Of course, the self has to die. When all of us die physically on this planet, the self dies. We have to let that go, because we are not the self. We're not the avatar we've created. So we have to let that go. The whole world and everything attached to the concept of self. We have to let go. That's what dying is. It's letting it go. And he let it go. He let it go consciously. And the fact that he was crucified, that he was tortured, all the things that the world can, it's like the bottom line. It's like he's testing that Einstein theory out, and he's going like, they're saying,
Interesting, it wasn't he?
the disciples are going like, this is hostile. Jesus, let's cut off the ear. The servant's trying to take you. And Jesus is going, no, 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 no. You still aren't getting it.
I'm not
We
getting it
live in a
yet.
friendly universe. This
Friendly
plays
universe.
out well. This plays out perfectly. So I'm following it. I'm watching it and I'm following it. This is a good thing for you to see what happens to me as I follow.
Yeah.
I will transcend the perception by
Transcend the
doing it.
perception.
Yes, I will do that. And he did. He transcended the perception of the probably the worst, one of the worst things, which is that if all else fails with a problem, someone can torture and kill you and end your life. Well, it's not your life. They can't end your life. All they
Life.
can do is they can affirm this, and then they're going to ask you to buy into it by, especially if you're attached to your sense of self and body, because you can go, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm going to die. Well, you're not going to die. No one ever dies.
No one
Ever.
does.
No one dies. However, we do go through that experience of the self dies. Yes, it dissolves. Or I don't even know if it dies so much. Because again, for me, I don't quite understand the self, the avatar. It's not like the self has to be killed. but it does have to lose you lose attachment to it and the power of it. And that's really what this step is. So that's why if you're accepting the lay of the land, you're accepting how things look, because that it's not real, and also yet that the foundation of it is real. The foundation of all of it is real. However, your perception of what it is batshit crazy. It's
Oh,
not.
real quick, you're on a roll, and I actually this is you. I've got like two shorts already, but basically he came back in A Course of Miracles, and he said without any wavering, he said all things happen for good. He said all things happen for
Right.
good except in the ego's judgment. And then I want to parallel that. I want to dovetail that on what you just shared, because he went to the cross. And his disciples wouldn't follow him, but he went to the cross saying, why do you think that something's going wrong here? I'm testing it.
Right. And
And
he knew they would, he told them they'd all leave him. And he's saying, because he knew the weight of the inertia that attachment is so huge, that inertia. And which is like people listening to this podcast, they're under that inertia. I'm under that inertia. The difference between me now and the me that was, I don't know, years before or lives before, is now the inertia I recognize as just a sense of false attachment, which I have created. I don't understand what it is, why I did that, but I do understand the effects of it. But now, of course, now I'm at this place where that whenever I'm looking at anything hostile and I can react to something because I'm in the world, I can go, oh, that shouldn't be like that. He shouldn't have done that. Then I go, what's that, Dale? Shouldn't have done what? Your reality shouldn't be as it is. That what happened should not have happened. What kind of reality? What kind of reality or truth is that? What basis do you have for that? You know what it is. It's like you're attached to it right now and you want it to be different. That's understandable. You don't want to go to the cross. That's understandable. But you don't want to. Even Jesus, he's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he's going like at the very, near it when it's starting to happen, he's going like, God, God, I'd really like not to do this. I really would not like to do this. Scaring me. But he's looking at it and he's going, but nevertheless, I serve the truth, and I serve the truth not because I should, but because I'm freedom. I am freedom. So I serve the truth. So the truth is I will go where you lead me. And it's okay. That's a good model too. Can an enlightened, can a person who's on this path go complain and say, I don't like this? And can they rant and rave about the way the world is? Of course you can. It's insane, and you can act insane in it. That doesn't mean you're insane. Only time you start to get, and even if you do this, you're not really insane. However, you can kind of feel encrusted in insanity, which a lot of people are, most people are, because they are so attached to this as a reality that they cannot perceive that there's a basis, that they cannot perceive there's a friendliness beyond it. So they're invested in manipulating what is here, even if it costs them suffering and everything like that. But there's a shelf life for that. There's a shelf life for that. And for those who are awakening, that shelf life will end. When it does end, it will end instantaneously. It will end like when the one reaches a certain 100th monkey potential, where the one sees all, and then all who are attached and have no awareness of that one, all together we see as one. That's Teilhard de Chardin saying the last phase of evolution on this planet is a collective I am, not a collective we are, but a collective I am as one, which we are one. As one, we say we know I am as one. Now we are. The end of individuality is gone. It's the collective as one. We're whole. And we go, I am. And that's the end of the physical universe. Of course, it would be the end of the physical and all that is the universe here. Because our world, because the world is based on duality. It's based on individuality. It's based on separateness. And when that ends, the world ends. Of course it does. Why? Because the end has to explode? No, but because there's no basis for the world anymore. If thought and awareness goes to a point where we are one, clearly one, then there is no place for this world anymore. Other than, there's no place. There's no basis for it. It's gone.
Dale, you remember the title of the book by Gary Renard, Disappearance of the Universe? And as you're sharing this with me, I'm picturing in my mind a movie. And when the movie ends, the end, and then you see the credits scroll down. That must be it. The movie ends, the credits scroll down.
Yeah.
We all leave the theater.
Yeah.
It's
And
one
it's
big
probably,
movie.
it would be interesting. I'm really, because there's no space time, but the whole thing of when we physically die,
Yeah,
that
let's touch on that for a
that's
while.
extraordinary, because you think when you have nothing left to attach to, that whole
Yeah,
thing is just that I can't even follow it. Like how, but of course that's because the madness of space time is so convoluted. You can't really bring awareness into, as far as an example, or whatever you want to call it, into this madness of space time, because it's crazy. It's absolute,
oh,
has no basis. It's absolutely, it's like it's made, like they say, you're making this up as you go. Yeah, we're making this up as we go. We have been, we've been, since the mind existed, we've been making this up as we go. And when it ends, it ends. And
and one of the things I've had to eat a lot of humble pie with, I spent most of my life judging religions, and it didn't serve me. But then I realized, when I was a little boy and got some of the basic Christian fundamentals, I realized I had to go back to some of those basic fundamentals, which were simply, it was as simple as faith and trust. They were
mhm,
telling us back, way back in the 70s, I had a foundation of faith and trust. Now, they told me to have some faith in a sacrificial savior, which I said there's got to be more to it than that. But what they were probably pointing towards, because I want to see through the lens of spirit, Holy Spirit instead of the ego, is just what you've been saying, is trust that it's a friendly universe. I mean, I've complicated things my entire life, which is perfect, because I had to go down all the rabbit holes to realize just what we've been saying this whole Zoom call, that nothing here works. Perfect.
right.
I'm glad I tell Krishnamurti, don't trust the word I say. I've tried everything to come to my own conclusion that nothing here works. And now I'm ready to go back to can you believe I'm even saying it? Go back to Calvary Baptist Church. So for all the things that they said that didn't make any sense, they said something that was more important. They said faith and trust.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down, like 12 steps, keep it simple, stupid. I think they put that on the wall for Kenneth.
Yeah. Yeah, I take my partner to a Methodist church, which is, it's a very they're part of their mission is they're really for gay people, like accepting gay people and people of different beliefs, and it's like, and it's not like what I call a gay church in the sense everybody's gay, but there are a lot of gay people in it, and there's a theme of that, but it's Methodism, and the minister, she has a gentle way of speaking. I just, to me, it's like, it's all birds singing, birds chirping. And if you can start hearing the love in the birds chirping.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can feel the love in the birds chirping. It's like you don't really, you don't really need to know what they're saying. It's all crazy anyway. So you don't need to really know what they're saying, but you can't, I mean, you have to read beneath it, where that, a lot of times in the
Oh,
Bible, they're asking Jesus questions, and he's going like 6 layers deeper than that. And they're going, what?
what?
That's what he's doing. He's going like, he's answering not the chirping, the meaning of the chirping. He's answering the spirit of the chirping. And they're going like, they're getting it, but there's part of their heads are going like, well, like for Nicodemus, he says, you must be born again. He's going like, does that mean I have to go back in the womb a second time? And
No.
Jesus says, well, you've got to be born of the water and the spirit. He doesn't clarify it that clearly. He just keeps taking him into that. And because that's reality, and he knows that Nicodemus is reality. It's not, beyond the name of Nicodemus, that this being is reality. And so when we go to, like churches and stuff, I mean, same thing. I understand the thing about unity churches, because uh, the whole thought of new thought is that, the idea that we can almost like affirm the Christ and stuff like that, and kind of break through the the illusion, or whatever you want to call it, or soften it or enrich it or whatever you want to call it. It's just nuts. It's really nuts. I mean, the only thing when I look at teachings, if it doesn't have surrender or like complete surrender or complete forgiveness, that kind of stuff in it, and that's the practice, it's pretty caught up in stuff, in hostility. I mean, I love the phrase they say, I can forgive, but I can never forget. Well, that's crazy, because if you can't forget, I mean, first of all, you don't need to forget. If you forget, I mean, for instance, if you're wrong, if there's no harm, no foul, and you hold a resentment against someone, and you realize that actually you were mistaken, of course you can remember that, because you can remember how you perceived it askew, and then all of a sudden you're going like, oh my God, I see the reality. Why would you forget it? You're sitting there going like, thank you, I see it, I see it. And so that's that practice of that on this world. And this one, well, I want to do this keep doing this podcast, even though people maybe they hear it or something. I know they don't come on, but that's okay. Because a lot of what I'm doing here is probably pretty scary well, it's very scary for the self, because I'm talking about the death of it. I'm talking about the illusion and the dissolution of it. And that can really feel frightening for people. Yet it's almost like they'll touch it and they'll go, well, let me get a little bit around this. But the reality is that's where the awakening, that's where the freedom is. Freedom from suffering. Freedom from suffering is surrender. Freedom from suffering is acceptance. That's where freedom from suffering is, complete acceptance. And then, that's where miracles occur, is in acceptance. You accept and you say, I don't really know what's going on here. I really think when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, I don't think he knew what he was doing. I don't think he had an intention to raise Lazarus from the dead. I think he went I think what was happening is they were saying the story of his death, and they had expectations. And probably in Jesus' mind, he's going like, well, this is all about the Father anyways. I don't do anything. Father does everything. Yeah, I'll go with you. Yeah, I'll go with you. And then when he gets in there, these words come out of his mouth and this happens. And there was much more that was happening than Lazarus being raised from the dead. There was much more going on there that he could see, and maybe he couldn't see all of it. I don't know, but certainly the people around couldn't see a lot of it. They saw the raising of a dead man, which well, could a dead person, could a self, could a body of a self be raised from inanimacy? Of course it could be. Anything's possible in this world. Anything's possible. Did he intend to do it? No, I don't think he intended to do it. What'd be the point of that? He didn't need to prove anything to himself or to these people. Did Lazarus need to still be around come back from the dead and be around? I guess so, because he came back. But for me, I would look at it probably like how Jesus looked at it. And if somebody said, "What does this all mean?" Jesus would probably went, "Oh, it means the glory of it means a friendly universe. That's what it means. It means a friendly universe. What can I say? It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. It's better. It's so much better than you think it is. And I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means, because every meaning we have is couched in the illusion. Anyways, you got to start seeing that, like prayer. How do you pray? Do you pray? I mean, like if you're starting in the world. There's that story. I love that story I can remember that story where the village has a monk, and he's the center of it, and he's like where the village gets its strength. And whenever there's a problem, he would go to his special place. He would say a special prayer, and he would there's probably more to that, but let's leave it at that. He would go to his special place and he would say his special prayer, and the village would be helped. And after he died, another monk came in, and that monk right away said, I don't think God's attached to any special place. So whenever there was a problem, wherever he was, he would say the special prayer, and the village would be helped. And then, when he died, then another monk took over, and that monk said, I don't think that it's a special prayer. I mean, it's not the certain words. It's not ritual. It's like, so whenever there was a prayer, whenever there was a problem, he would stop where he was, and he would say a prayer, and the village would be helped. And then after he died, another monk came about, and this monk liked money more than prayer. And so he basically, his attitude was, screw these people. They're just needy and dying, and I don't want to help them at all. So whenever the village needed help, he would do nothing. He wouldn't go to a special place. He wouldn't say a special prayer. He wouldn't even pray. He'd just go, do what you will with them, God. And the village would be helped. And the village would be helped.
Well,
Yeah, the village would be helped, because that's the nature of the universe. That's the nature of the universe. It's not what we manipulate it to be. Like, that's why for prayer, I mean, what other prayer could you say other than a prayer of thanksgiving? I don't know what other prayer you could pray other than a prayer of thanksgiving, saying thank you. Thank you for what I see. Thank you for what I don't see. Thank you for that I live in a friendly universe. I'm so grateful for that. I don't know what else you could pray.
I mean, we've got about 10 different titles for the Zoom call, but I mean, right now, I'm just seeing across, this invisible cartoon bubble above my head, thy will be done. Maybe it is that simple.
Yeah, it is that, and it will be done. And that's one of the prayers that I was living with for a while. And I used to think that I actually affected it by saying the prayer or believing in the prayer. But then I realized that's not true. I just saw something. I saw the whole concept of willingness, where there was, for a while, I was saying to Spirit, I'm really hard-headed here, and I don't see a lot. I'm caught in, before I even used friendly and hostility, I'd say I'm figuring out hostility all the time. I'm judging it, and I'm trying to figure it out, and I get caught in it. And I'd basically be like, you know what? I'd just like to end that, God. I'd like to transcend that. I'd be willing towards that. And it's like Spirit would be going, not God, but Spirit, in a sense, through that reasoning, would say, really, you want to do that? I go, yeah. I was like, and it'd be like, I didn't get this at first. Spirit says, well, from where you're at, there'll be times you really won't like this. You really will not like this, because willingness will be to allow your intention and your efforts to die, to stop.
Can we flush that out a little bit, because I was just, before this Zoom call, I was talking to a friend in Hawaii, and she's basically, what came down to was this. I shared with her a piece of wisdom that I had heard from a mystic by the name of Teal Swan years ago, who said,
I remember her, yeah.
Yeah, she's a real bright young woman, and she said it's not about feeling better, it's about getting better at feeling. Which maybe what I'm hearing is she's basically said, we're always I want to feel better. Once fine, go buy The Secret. But maybe at this point, in my parable at least, the secret doesn't work anymore. I have to be better and more willing to say yes to the feelings. It's fine to say yes to the joy, but I also have to say yes to the pain, to the hurt, to the all the yucky stuff. Say yes to that. If it is a friendly universe, which I want to, that's my anchor. I've got to say yes to that as well.
Well, yeah,
that's where my work is.
Well, that's where where most people are all locked up. You talk about tied in unconsciously to belief in a hostile universe. All that stuff is like we crystallize it inside as bad. We say it's even bad. And that's why the whole idea of listening to someone without any judgment, without any intention. Can you listen to someone like a midwife and help them give birth to what's in there, so that they can actually allow it to come up, so they can actually see the truth that makes them free, to know that truth within them that makes them free. And it may do a lot of things through their perception, that's okay. But if you were going to help somebody, you'd be a midwife, and you'd be like, you wouldn't even argue if they're going like, God, I want to kill myself now for what I'm seeing. It'd be like, you'd be standing there like Emerson says you should. Well, his quote, Emerson saying, do not say things, what you are stands beside you all the while, and thunders so loud I can't hear what you say to the contrary. But it isn't even do not say things. It's the do not say things is for me. I would probably change that to do not think anything. What this being, who this being is, stands beside me all the while and thunders so loud I can't hear what I believe to the contrary. I cannot hear it. I cannot hear what I believe to the contrary. I cannot, or if I can hear it, it would be like I cannot, I cannot accept or agree. I cannot
Yeah, cannot agree.
what I believe to the contrary. I just can't do it, you know? And then what are you talking about? What are you talking about when you start? I mean, if you want to know a friendly universe, what happens if you all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but you start accepting that it is a friendly universe, and whenever you're not seeing it friendly, whenever it's feeling hostile, it's like that's spirit saying this is a good time for you to watch because you're missing something, aren't you?
Yeah.
Why am I missing something? Well, if you're attempting a problem, if you're trying to fix it, or you're feeling like something's wrong or off, well, there you are. You're in a hostile universe. Are you in a hostile or friendly universe? Well, I'm in a friendly universe. Well, then you're not, obviously you can't be seeing and experiencing that because or if you are, you're not allowing yourself to experience it, large and freely because you're locked into thinking it unconsciously, even that it means something. Hostile. It's not hostile, It's not
I
hostile.
I think back often, what what I thought was a tragedy in my story, which has gone on for, I'm embarrassed to say it's gone on for 35 years now. Everybody knows about it. I've got the story of the fragmentation of my family, fragmentation back in 1990. Well, based it took me a lot of suffering. If it hadn't have been for that fragmentation, Dale, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't be hosting. We wouldn't be hosting this ministry together, and I wouldn't be asking these very deep, profound questions if it hadn't have been for that fracture.
Right.
The world would say parents. A father should not disown their children. Well, wait a minute. 35 years later, I'm going to challenge that. Maybe my father loved me. You see, this is kind of like where we get into some of the inquiry work. I can do it now. It's kind of embarrassing that it took this long, but I don't want to believe in time anymore. Maybe my father did that out of love. I mean, not consciously, but subconsciously. What a loving act. He didn't disown me, he set me free. He said, I trust you so much, I'm going to let you figure it out on your own. But I know the only way that you're ever going to let go of these codependent ties is if I send you a real nasty letter and not allow you on my property anymore. You see, kind of in your own words, though, I learned a lot of this from you. I like that story is a calming story. The other stories just continue the agitation. I just keep going around in circles and loops and loops. So it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Suffering. Is it bad and is it wrong? Well, it took me 35 years to bake in the oven.
Yeah. And
I can laugh. I actually get a laugh out of it now.
well, when we're baking it individually together, separately, which is in
Yeah.
mind, and a better question than why is someone doing this to me? The better question is, why am I bothered by someone doing this to me?
That's it. We ask the
Because
question. That's what
yeah,
Byron Katie says. She says, just ask the question, and meditation is waiting for the answer to find us. One of the things,
if you are light and love, and you are the child of God, and you are omnipotent and all this, I mean, what does anyone's madness have to do with you other than a reflection of the world, the lay of the land? It's the lay of the land. You're sitting there going like, oh, it's Jesus again saying, be in this world. Yeah, well, it's madness. Yeah, but be in this world. Yes, yes, but don't be of it. Don't be of it, because that's crazy. And when we're attacked, I mean, that's why if you're in a relationship and you're having problems in the relationship, like you're having issues, I mean, they could be issues that psychiatrists would line up and say, you're being abused. This is not fair. This is not right. You're getting your boundaries violated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Well, that works if you're an avatar, if you believe you're a sense of self, a psychological being. Yeah, I get that. But when you start when you start rising up to you are the light of the world, that doesn't work anymore. It's like the only question is always, it's like, how am I seeing and feeling this as hostile? And it isn't like it's wrong. It's like you're asking, you're going like, what am I believing here? I mean, everything will lead you back now. Then, I mean, your best teachers are the ones who cross your boundaries, who upset you because they're bringing up solid gold in you that you refuse to look at. And that's your freedom. And they're the ones that respect your boundaries, that are your soulmates, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they don't bring that stuff up. They respect, they say, I will not do that. I'll love you. I'll respect you. I won't bring that up. Well, the ones that run roughshod in there, they're kind of like poking around. They're going like, what about, in a way, they're not maybe consciously doing this, probably not at all, but they're going like, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And you're going, see, now then when you start working with your ego, you start seeing that that's how the ego works. After you start graduating to the point where you're going like the ego finally gets that you've passed the point where you can believe in changing anything, and that what the ego is saying and screaming at you to do, you go, I can't do that anymore. And the ego finally gets that you created and goes, you can't do this anymore, can you? And then of course it's going to ask the question, it's going to say, why do I exist anymore then if I can't scare you into doing better things in the world? And of course for me, my answer to that was, I don't know, but you're here. I do know that, and I do know that you're in the lay of the land, and I have to respect that, because if you weren't supposed to be here in my world, my creation of it, if you weren't supposed to be here in my world, you wouldn't be here, but you are here. So even though I can't do anything about it, and the ego's going like, will you still listen to me if I talk in terms of that realm? I go, and of course we were having a conversation, and I'm going, well, of course I'll be still here, but you know that I can't do anything about it, right? That I won't do anything about it because I can't. I have no faith in, no juice, nothing. I got nothing in the tank for that. No vision, nothing. And the ego's going, yeah, but I still exist, so I could do that, right? And I go, of course you can. And if it says then, well, I don't understand, why do I exist? And I go, well, I don't know, but you do. And then later on, as it brings stuff up now I get part of it. And it's certainly not the end of the journey or all the awareness that a certain point. But I see now that my ego is always bringing up stuff like, now it's like it's bringing it up. It's going like, did you know, it reaches down inside me through somebody's actions or something. And I react, and it goes, do you know you have this inside you, this reaction to this? Do you know that? And I go, wow, yeah, you're showing it to me. It's like the ego and I are going like, so like, can you do your magic of observing and finding and waiting and trusting with observing and knowing that there's friendliness in this that you're not seeing because it's not hostile? Can you allow that to happen? And I go, yeah. And then when I do break through it, it's like the ego goes, it isn't like the ego goes, I'm transcended. It goes, just a minute, I'm going to go down and see what else is down there. And it pulls something else up. It just keeps pulling stuff up. Of course, it pulls it up from our reactions with the world and people. We got plenty of stuff in this world to we got everything we need to bring everything up. And then we that's where I think freedom from suffering really gets to. I worked this with depression. I went through the whole cycle of depression and went to the bottom of it, to the point now that if I get depressed, it's like time out. And basically, I may get wore out, but I go, it's like a timeout. I go, okay, this is a timeout. I may be, I have this time to rest, because there's no fear of what depression is, like a loss of anything, a death of anything real. There's nothing there anymore. I have no juice to deal with it other than to see it. And so, that's why I'm good counseling with people who are depressed, because I can just go right to the chase. I can go, hey, have you ever asked this question that have you ever thought that maybe this might be the best thing that ever happened to you? Have you ever considered looking at it that way? I mean, even just trying to see if there was something in you, that another story that you haven't seen. Of course, I did that story with my friend where he kept telling me this was the worst thing in the world. And when he was in suicidal depression, and I finally went, look, I got your story, and I've accepted the fact that this could be the worst thing that ever happened to you. I'll accept that. You could kill yourself. I get it. I get it. That story, I'm not denying it. However, you're asking for help here, right? Okay. So I accept that. Now I want to ask you to see if you will go a little in another direction here, outside the box of your thinking. And that is, could this actually be something that you haven't seen that could it be that miracle that you're looking for? Could it be that? And of course, the mind's right away going like, oh no. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. And it starts reciting the story. And I'm going, hey, I know the story. I've already accepted. I've already told you they could be true. You don't need to tell me more about that. The question now is, will you take a step with me in another direction? And if you don't take a step with me in the other direction and you just want to hang around the old story, that's okay. That's okay. But I can't, all I can do is help you come out of that to another place if you want to look. And I'm extending my hand and my heart if you want to do that. I'll walk with you there because I've done that. It's not like I'm asking you in theory to do something I haven't done. I'm taking you to a place where I live, and I'll help you, I'll help you walk through that into that place if you want to try. And if you're ready, like if you're rock bottom with your story, people can then, if they're getting to rock bottom, then if they take that hand, they'll come out of that. If they're not, then they got to do more field work. And that's not bad. It's not bad, like I said a few minutes ago, when you're in that place and you're clinging to that so tightly, your best friend is suffering. That's your best friend. Your best friend is the suffering that basically you're trying every which way to manipulate it, change it, and everything. And it's basically the spirit's going, no, 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 not going to work. No, 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 not going to free you, not going to give you peace. No, no, no. But keep trying. No, 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 no. And finally, you get to the point where you go, this isn't working. And it's like you go, yeah, I know. It hasn't never worked for anyone. It does not work. Well, what can I do? Well, you can do something different. What's that? Well, you could be willing to try another path. Are you willing? Are you ready to be willing to try another path? To go into a place of mystery? I'll help you. I'll walk with you. No. Okay. Maybe. All right. I can hang out with that. Yes, I can hang out with that too. Let's go. Answer this. I'll ask you some questions. I'll ask you some questions you don't want to answer. Because nobody wants to answer those questions that lead outside the box because the ego's really guarding against that. Like, no, 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 that we can't see how that's going to go anywhere constructive. Well, let's see, But you have to accept the lay of the land. You have to accept that this is the way, this is what's going on. You eventually, you can move the furniture around all you want, but there's an end to moving the furniture. I mean, at the very least, for most people, the physical end, the end of moving the furniture is when they physically die. That's the end of the moving of the furniture. And everybody who has lived on this planet stops moving the furniture. At some point, they stop moving the furniture. Most of them stop when they physically die. That's the only time, and because they're forced to. It's rock bottom time. When your body is failing and your whole world is failing, that's rock bottom time. However, you can fail before then. I've failed before then, and I'm in a process of creative failure. It's wonderful to be in a process of creative failure. To the point that all the things that people, most of the stuff, not everything, but most of the stuff that people strive for, I'm like, I look at that as like energy that I don't have. And first of all, it was energy that I wished I had, but I don't have. Now it's energy that I just, even if I had it, I just would not give it to it because it's like throwing it into a pit, and I'm not going to do that. I mean, why would I do that? There's no motivation to go chasing it. And when we're together, we start doing that. If there people are listening to this broadcast right now and they're still sticking with us, this podcast, well, that's good because you're starting to see that. You're starting to see the possibilities of how you can be willing towards that. And that's the first step really about coming out of it, as being a willingness to, I told that to Spirit that I was willing to come out of it. And I went in the dark. I went alone. We're never alone. But in my mind and how I was working it, I went alone into the dark night of the soul. And that was really, really hard. But I came through it. And what I learned from it was that I don't think I'd do that again. I wouldn't go into the dark night of the soul alone. I would talk to people. I would let people, I would have the courage at this point. That people said, "What's going on with you?" I'd say, "I'm failing. I'm utterly failing. I have no, I'm utterly failing. I haven't a clue. I can't walk this path anymore. I don't know how, and then, afraid that most of the people, which they would have been, would run away and go, you're tugging at a string that I've already seen. And if I'm not going to tug on that, because I don't want that unraveling in me, you're contagious. Stay the frick away from me." But then you will run across people like you and other people that are my friends that I see that they're already unraveling. And I'm like, it's like I go,
We're
"You
still here.
unraveling too?" And they go, "Yeah."
We're
And then
actually
we
getting a
start talking
chuckle
about
out of
what
it.
life can be unraveled, which is really cool. Everything of this world starts to end. Like working for a living ends. A lot of people, especially men, thinking about we have to work for a living. Well, when it unravels, you don't have to work for a living anymore. That's a total concept of the hostile world. The universe provides completely for you. But it isn't like you have to test it. You have to accept it. You have to accept it. And then you can see. Like I remember when I finally started getting to me was when my last of my IRAs in my retirement, and I spent it and I had nothing left. And remember looking inside at that spirit and going, well, I guess we'll find out. We'll find out how the rubber meets the road here, because I don't have any any resources anymore. And the thought, like somebody said, well, you could go to work and get money, and I would go, no, I can't. At this point, I can't do that. I mean, it wasn't like I can't. I mean, could I do something that I got paid for? Sure, I could, but I could not go to work to earn money, because that path was over. It was like it either works or it doesn't work. Then I found out immediately that it worked. Like, I haven't worked. I mean, I'm paid for what's supposedly a job right now, taking care of my partner. And that came up out of left field. I mean, I started doing that, and then all of a sudden money started coming in for it. And other kinds of money has come in, and resources. I've been given I never had this happen to me. The last two cars that I have received, that I drive, and they're nice cars. Both of them were an Acura and now a Honda. Uh, uh, and I didn't ask for this, but they were given to me. They were given to me. All of a sudden, they just showed up and said, "We want to give you this." Oh, okay. Why? I don't know. Other than that was happening. That's never happened to me before. I never had a car or anything like that I didn't have to go through the loans and figure out how I'm going to pay for it and all that stuff. Now a lot of things happen where everything is given to me, because that's the nature of the universe.
Everything in the Zoom call, that's why I record these, every single week, has been extraordinarily valuable. That being said, the last 5 minutes of this Zoom call, I have found more value because I'm in the exact position that you just described. I honestly, it's dawned on, well, what am I going to do? Well, maybe I'll go, back to work. And each time, I continue to collapse, because the retirement's, down to nothing at this point. And the message that you just shared was the exact same message that I got from Stephanie Finn. Very, very soft and gentle message. She called me right before I left Pittsburgh. It was the day I was to leave Pittsburgh, and she just left a message saying the same thing happened to her, and she's always been provided for. And I can't remember, it was something else that you just said. But I think that is exactly where I find, I found you had a message 15 years ago, but 15 years later, you're delivering a very valuable message, because, we're definitely operating now. It's like DOS versus Windows. The old operating system was fear, scarcity, and lack, and I've got to go out there and strive. But right now, at age 57, I don't have any striving left. And to quote you, it would be like drinking antifreeze at this time in my story. I can't do it to myself.
Yeah, and the watershed event, like for that one, was when my last last IRA account, I took out like $4,000 to run my life with my partner, and it was gone. That was a watershed event. And I got to tell you, even before things opened up, and I wasn't looking for the stuff to open up, it just did. But when that happened, I was like so relieved. I got to tell you, I was relieved because it was like when you don't have anything, finally, then it's like, okay, you can stop. You can stop trying. And I stopped trying then. And when I stopped trying, everything opened up. That's like Jesus, in that one thing about in John where he talks about the only begotten Son and the condemnation. He says the condemnation was that men where their deeds were evil and they did them in the darkness because they didn't want to be seen in the light. And he says that twice, that's what men would do. That's the condemnation, that men would do things in the darkness of themselves because they did not want to be seen in the light. In other words, they wanted to keep it in denial. They wanted to keep it hidden. And that's when I looked up the word evil. I told you this before. I looked up the word evil in Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, took it back into the Greek, and that word evil went direct to a prime root. And the definition of that prime root was evil. The definition was working for subsistence. Working for subsistence. It makes total sense when you look at it, because if you're working for subsistence, all right, where is your mind as far as God providing for you if you are responsible for your subsistence?
I can't tell you, Dale. This is groundbreaking. I mean, no, it's not. I said it 2,000 years ago, but it's groundbreaking because now we have a platform to finally. That's why we're recording this. That's why we started this ministry. Basically, in a nutshell, he said it in the Course of Miracles. I need do nothing. Well, what's the how? Well, we're 58 minutes into this call, and here's the how. I'm sorry. I haven't laughed this much in days and days, because I'm still turning to mush inside of my cocoon. I'm starting to find a chuckle out of this. Thank you, Dale. There's yours too. So I think that's all the time we have for this Sunday. I can't wait to go back over this recording. So this is Reverend Kenneth Price with Reverend Dale Blackford on Sunday, September 22nd. I don't know. There's so many topics that came out of this. I just have to choose one. Here's what's even more valuable, Dale. You and I are ending this with a chuckle. I mean, we have touched on some of the most serious topics, not serious, but deep topics. And how could they be serious if we're laughing, an hour later? So anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments below. Visit our website, 2ormoreor1.com with the number 2. And that's it for Sunday, September 22nd. God bless. Looking forward to hearing back from you, and may the force be with you. And that's the end of this recording.